Welcome to my channel. I'm going to change the thermostat on my brumby. That's the replacement thermostat. That's part number. This is the thermostat gasket. It's part number. The thermostat is located underneath that cover. It's only held in with 2 bolts, and it has the top radiator hose going to it. I'm going to loosen the radiator cap to let any pressure out that's in the system. The engine is cold. There's a little bit of pressure there. If the spare tyre gets in your way, you can take it out to give you a little bit more room. I'm just going to try leaving the spare tyre in. If it gets in my way, I'll just remove it. I have a dish underneath to catch the coolant. Just taking the top radiator hose off. Loosening the clamp. Just loosen off these wires, just give a little bit more room. Should only take a bit of a wiggle, squeeze and a twist to get the hose off. Get this clamp a little bit more out of the way. Now the hose is out of the way, it'll make it easier to take that off and clean it. These bolts are 12mm. That's the top bolt. And that's the bottom bolt. They're both the same. You should just give this a wiggle, it should come off. That's what that looks like. The thermostat itself is a little bit stuck. The reason I'm changing the thermostat is sometimes the temperature gauge shows not even a quarter, other times it'll show over a half. So I think the thermostat is getting stuck, therefore it is time to change. It looks like somebody has glued it in there with a bit of gasket goo of some sort. So I'm having trouble getting it out. Normally they're not this stuck in. There it goes. So there's the old one. Now it goes in that way with the little hole at the top. I had to knock a hole in it with the screwdriver so I could get enough grip to flip it out. No, that's the old one. Looks like it's got a lot of built up dirt caught up in there. So I think that one was getting caught open sometimes, and other times getting caught closed. When they get stuck in the open position, it lets the coolant just travel around the engine, never letting it get to temperature, and it just stays cold all the time. And then when they get stuck closed, they overheat, or at the very least heat up. Now I'm going to clean both sides up with a razor blade. Being careful not to cut into the aluminium with the razor blade. It should be good enough. It's nice and smooth. Now for the other side. While you're doing this, be careful not to cut any wires. It feels nice and flat. Now that inner edge where the thermostat sits has some kind of glue in there. I'm using a flat screwdriver to clean the glue out of where the thermostat sits. That should be good enough. So it goes in that way with this little piece to the top. So that's to the top. This is the inside, that is the outside. So it goes in that way. Now for the gasket. I'm going to put the bolts through the thermostat housing. So when I peel the sticky back off of this gasket, I can line it up properly. So that way I'm sticking it to the housing. That way it'll be easier to clean off if I have to change it again, or when I have to change it again. It goes on that way. Make sure you keep a bit of pressure against it to stop the thermostat from falling out of its hole. It does have that little recessed bit it's supposed to sit in. When you're putting these bolts in, be careful, it's into aluminium. Try and do them up evenly, you don't want all the pressure on one bolt, not the other. That should be tight enough. Put the hose back on. Tighten the clamp back up. Okay, it's nice and tight. Forgot to put that bit on. So make sure you don't forget that. So I've loosened both of them. Now I'll take the top one out. Lifting up the dipstick a little bit makes it easier. Take that bolt out. Just so I can put that back on. And that top bolt is a little bit easier to get to with the top hose out of the way. They should be tight enough. If you get any leaking from that gasket, it usually only takes just a little bit more of a tighten up on them 2 bolts, and that's usually enough to stop it leaking. Wires back in their clips. Everything's all sitting properly. I'm using concentrated coolant. I've mixed the coolant at 50-50. That's half coolant with half water. I'm just topping the radiator back up. The radiator's full, but because I've installed an overflow bottle, I will put a little bit of coolant in there as well. That way when it heats up and gets rid of some of that coolant and air that's still in the top of the radiator, and if there's any bubbles in the system, as it cools down it will just suck coolant back. Doesn't need a lot in there, it was already half full. That's only to get rid of any air bubbles that might be in the system. Hope this helps. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. See you next time.